This conference will now be recorded.
All right, after the recorder calls meeting to order, entertain the motion to go into closed session for attorney-client privilege.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? All right, and then closed session. Back to Frank's office.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, welcome everybody. First got a little business taken care of. We just had a closed session, entertain a motion. I'm sorry, got the microphone's on. Entertain a motion to come out of the closed session.
Make that motion.
All right, second. All in favor? All right, and now we're in regular session. Welcome, everybody. Glad to see everybody here. If you would, we'll go ahead and get the meeting started, if you would stand. And I think we have some Boy Scouts here that would like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if I can get them to come up front. Thank y'all for being here. We ready? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. If y'all would, please remain standing. We'll have Mr. Caldwell give us an invocation, please, and then just stay standing.
Most gracious Heavenly Father God, Lord, we thank you for bringing everyone here safely this evening. We pray that everything done tonight will be according to your will and your purpose. We pray for safe travels home for everybody. We pray to the Father for a good, thank you for a good year as we wrap up this year. We pray to bless everybody during this holiday season. In Jesus' holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. We'll have a moment of silence for any of our neighbors who passed away. All right, thank you. Please be seated. At this time, please check your cell phones. Make sure you got them off or your silencers are on. At this time, I'll also ask any of the board members if there is any conflict of interest of anything that is on the agenda. Please let it be known now. And with that, let's see what's number. Entertain a motion to accept the agenda with the elimination of item number 15.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Second.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Thank you. Next up is public comment. I believe we only had one person. That was Mrs. Holtz. Is Ms. Holtz here?
No.
I hope she's okay. And we didn't have anybody else?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, so next up is the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Thank you, gentlemen, ladies.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Maybe it's a little late, but Frank, we ever had a problem with pornography with town computers?
To my knowledge, we have not. This is a result of recent legislation that approved earlier this year. So
I thought that might be the reason, but I'll just clarify. Thank you.
All right, next up is the resolution accepting the June 30th, 2024 audited financial statements. And I believe we have our auditor.
yeah, thank you,
See
Mayor
y'all
Baker.
later.
Yeah, our auditor, Lee Grissom, will speak with y'all here in just a moment. Let me
We can get him back. There he is.
make him the presenter. Does that say make presenter?
Can you hear us, Lee?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right.
Ready to turn it over to you.
All right, good deal. Thanks for having me here this evening. This is our third year auditing the town of Cape Carteret. And this is going to be mostly, well, pretty much all good news from our standpoint. So That's a good thing this evening. So the first thing, we issued an unmodified opinion on these financials. That's our highest level of assurance, basically saying the financial statements that that the town provided, all the various audit requests, they provided in a timely manner. We got the audit out and was able to feel comfortable enough to present in our independent professional opinion and unmodified, also known as a clean opinion. So good job there. We issued the audit by November 25th, or on November 25th, ahead of the December 1st deadline. So it's considered late, anything submitted after December 1st. So we're able to get the audit completed by that date, which is a good thing. The staff did a great job. They provided full access to records. We didn't have any disagreements with management. The journal entries overall, there were very few journal entries that we had to make to the book, so it kind of indicates that the books are in good shape. The town does a good job with the outsource arrangement with a lady called Alicia O'Reilly, I believe her name is. So that arrangement works really well, and it has worked really well the last 2 fiscal years. So the books were in good shape overall. Frank and Barbara did a great job helping assemble the 58-page financial statements. And as you see in a moment, the records have been in good shape. As far as financial statement trends, the town's is trending in the right direction in the last 5 fiscal years. The town-wide net position at June 30th, 2024 was $5.5 million, an increase of $545,000 over the previous fiscal year. The general fund added $144,000, which is also very positive. The fund balance, unassigned fund balance percentage is 91%, which 100% would be a full year's of expenditures, or full year worth of expenditures, kind of the emergency fund for the general fund. So 91% is a very strong position to be in. So from a trend standpoint, the Local Government Commission was very satisfied. So just so you know, when we submit the audit, we complete a data input sheet, which there's all kinds of financial metrics that the Local Government Commission is looking at. That is in a handout, and I'm not going to go over that, but the handout that accompanied the audit is called Report to the Mayor and Members of Board of Commissioners, year ended June 30th, 2024. I'm just going to point out pages 5 through 10 of that handout includes performance indicators, and that's information the Local Government Commission is really interested in, and anything highlighted in red would be an indicator of concern. And the good news to report is that there was nothing that the Local Government Commission had flagged in red from submitting the data input sheet. And a lot of smaller municipalities, just so you know, I'd say about half of them would have some type of indicator. So that's really good news on that front. Okay, I'm going to switch to the graphs and share it on my screen.
You also have a copy of these graphs in the handout as well.
Okay, the first one, analysis of fund balance governmental funds. And we have 7 fiscal years of data here, the far right column being the 2024, which is the audit that I'm going over this evening. So as you can see from 2018, 2024, the town's trending in a really nice trajectory. And the final total fund balance in 2024 was just under $3 million at $2,000,999. And that's the second highest fund balance of the last 7 fiscal years. And as I noted before, the general fund added $144,000, so that increase would be a part of that of this graph. The next one is total cash, all funds, also trending nicely over the last 7 fiscal years. You can see the last 3 fiscal years have kind of separated from the previous 2018 to 2021 range, but you're just under 3 million in 2024. Okay, as I mentioned briefly before, the general fund's reserve balance, that's what this graph is getting at. The town is around 87%, so 100% would be a full year's of expenditures in unassigned fund balance. So what the calculation that the local government commission is interested in is unassigned fund balance in the general fund divided by general fund expenditures. So that gives you a percentage, and then I split that into the number of months in reserve. The main thing you need to take away here is that the town is well above the minimum and above average of municipalities of similar size. So that number the local government commission provides as the average is around 63%. So 87 is well above the 63%. So the town's in good shape from a reserve standpoint in the general fund. Next graph, long-term debt by fiscal year. And overall, this is a pretty conservative amount of debt. As you can see in 2018 to 2021, it was basically close to zero. The only debt currently on the town's books totals up to just under 100,000, and those are capital leases for vehicles. And this is the last one, property tax collection percentage by fiscal year. You're at just over 99%, basically on par with previous fiscal years presented. So again, we issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. Overall, from our standpoint, it was a good audit. Financial statement trends were looking good, and as far as our testing of internal controls, there were no issues that we came across. There was actually, I should have mentioned this earlier, this is the first time in 3 fiscal years that we did not have any compliance findings. So the previous fiscal year, we had a compliance finding for a budget overage. And then 2 years before that, I think we had 2 findings. It's not coming to me, but the town has done a good job of continuously improving, really since I think Frank took over. So town seems to be moving in the right direction from our standpoint. All right, is there any questions?
Lee, thank you for that presentation. Just a couple of other things I just want to make sure the board's aware of. One is that when you compare our fund balance to the current year budget that you all adopted back in actually in late May, our fund balance is equal to about 108% of this year's budget. So I know it gets a little confusing sometimes. You see some different numbers there. He's referring to the actual general fund expenditures last year. I always like to compare it to our budget going forward. So as a percentage of our budget for the current year, it's 108%. Again, whether it's 87% or 108%, we're in good shape, and that's the good news for the board. So kudos to the board, kudos to the previous elected and appointed officials of the town to leave us in a good position. The only other thing I wanted to point out to you is that, and you may recall that I mentioned this last year, we had some grant funds associated with the Cape Carteret Trail that weren't technically included in the audit report. Those have now been incorporated in. So that number that you see, that grand total general fund balance, $2,403,764, that resolves that issue. So everything's in there now. If the board is comfortable with the report, I would just simply ask you to consider the resolution accepting the June 30th, 2024 audited financial statements.
I can make a motion to accept the June 30th, 2024 audit.
Second. John?
Charlie.
Charlie, did you beat you? Okay. All right, all in favor? All right, thank you. Lee, if you're still here, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Next up is the consideration of appeal for nuisance vehicles located at 312 Holly Lane.
Mayor Baker, Commissioners, I don't believe I see the appellant here tonight, but I'm prepared to move forward if you think we should move forward. So the attorney's saying yes.
Okay.
Um, Just kind of briefly explain this issue to you. Pull up a couple of photographs. All of this, by the way, is in your packet. Just for the benefit of the audience, just wanted to put some of this stuff up on the screen. So essentially what the board is considering tonight is a formal appeal by Mr. Richard Wynn, who lives at 312 Holly Lane, whether or not two vehicles on his property constitute nuisance vehicles. And so the two vehicles are a gold Chrysler PT Cruiser. You see that in the picture at this location, has Florida tags on it. The other vehicle is a white Ford pickup truck, and there's a picture of that vehicle as well, has North Carolina plates on it. Back in late September, we were advised that there are some rat concerns on Holly Lane, and there were concerns expressed by a resident on Holly Lane that perhaps there are some nuisance conditions at actually several nearby properties on Holly Lane that may be contributing to that issue. So as we do in every case, we reviewed the town's ordinances, we visited the site, considered the language in the ordinance, considered the site-specific circumstances, and ultimately took action initially, an informal enforcement approach to try to resolve the concerns. And as we've talked about before, you've heard me say, whenever we receive these kinds of concerns from members of the community, our approach is always to seek to resolve them informally with the property owner. That was our hope when we started this process. That's always my goal, and 95% of the time that's successful. Unfortunately, in this particular situation, it was not successful, and we entered the formal enforcement phase. And so tonight is a result of that formal enforcement phase. There is a provision in our ordinance that allows the person to appeal to the Board of Commissioners. Mr. Wynn has been advised that the hearing is scheduled for tonight's meeting. So if you look in the packet, if you looked at the town's ordinances, you'll see a definition of nuisance vehicles. And so we looked at this initially in late September, early October. We contacted, we made a judgment that these are in fact nuisance vehicles, and I'll show a couple pictures here in just a moment. And again, tried an informal approach. Initially, we sent a friendly letter to Mr. Wynn. The copy of that's in your packet. We then followed that up with a personal site visit, conversation with him probably a week or two later. Ultimately, we returned again to visit him in person to try to address these issues. And unfortunately, they were not addressed, and we ultimately got to the formal enforcement phase. I will say that in this particular case, the concerns are, in my judgment, probably fairly easy to resolve. I would estimate that someone could probably resolve them completely within anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. The issues that we were concerned about, again, that we hoped would be resolved informally, the PT Cruiser, as you see in this picture, there's some grass growing up around the weeds. We also looked at aerial photography back several years. The vehicle appears to be inoperable and appears to not have moved at least since January of 2024, almost a year, and perhaps longer than that. So that was just kind of an initial observation. It doesn't look like the vehicle's moving, or maybe it's not functional. That in itself might be okay because it's parked on this person's property, and although it's in the grass, people can certainly park on their property where they would like. Upon closer review of the PT Cruiser and the Ford F-150, there's quite a bit of trash. I would characterize it as kind of typical household trash located inside of these vehicles, and has accumulated quite significantly over some period of time. And those factors basically led us to consider it to be a nuisance vehicle. The white Ford F-150 That does occasionally move. My understanding is it is occasionally driven. However, it has an awful lot of trash and debris in it as well. And so, again, there's a fine line here. There's certainly nothing that says you can't put whatever you want to put in your car. The question is, does it reach a level, and it's a pretty high bar, does it reach a level that it might cause a problem for others in the neighborhood? So we're constantly trying to balance personal property rights, which I take incredibly seriously in my role, versus overall community welfare. And when you look at the language in our ordinance, the definition of nuisance vehicle, we made a determination that this is probably rising to the level of a nuisance vehicle. And I'll kind of take you through just kind of the rest of the photos. I think it's, they're all fairly consistent, appear to be just general household trash in my estimation. So there are some other trash issues on the property and also in the garage. The one thing that I will say, the garage door used to be kept open all the way, and there were some concerns expressed about some of the issues in there. That's not a part of this hearing. Any other nuisance concerns that might exist at this property, we are still in informal enforcement actions with those, and may or not go further on those. The appeal hearing tonight is because we've moved into the formal enforcement phase because of the vehicles. So ultimately tonight, I think the board really has kind of just a pretty straightforward decision to make. When you look at our definition of nuisance vehicles, which essentially it says it's a vehicle on public or private property that is determined and declared to be a health or safety hazard, a public nuisance, and unlawful, including a vehicle found to be, and there's a list of 9 different example situations in there. Primarily in taking the actions that we took, we relied on number 7, which is a point of collection of garbage, food waste, animal waste, or any other rotten or putrescible matter of any kind. So that's the primary factor that we considered. I will tell you also that we considered number 1, a breeding ground or harbor for mosquitoes, other insects, rats, or other pests. And I will tell you that number 2, a point of heavy growth of weeds or other noxious vegetation over 8 inches in height. But the primary consideration was number 7. We also considered the fact that the vehicle had not moved in quite some time and appeared to be inoperable. And again, I can't stress this enough. To take you back to the very beginning, we really hope to just resolve this informally through a matter of conversation and friendly cooperation with the property owner. Again, unfortunately, that was not successful. The reason that this came about in the first place is because a neighboring property owner indicated concerns about rats, and there are pictures of rats in your packet that this individual claims to have trapped over the last few months. And because that concern was expressed, we looked into these cases. There were a couple of other cases that we worked to resolve informally in the same general area. I was pleased that we were able to resolve them informally. We attempted to resolve this informally, but we were not successful. And ultimately, we have a responsibility to seek that balance that I mentioned to you. We have a responsibility to respect private property rights, and absolutely do, but we also have to respond to any legitimate concerns that are raised by other property owners in that area. And so we took the action that we took. Mr. Nguyen obviously disagrees with that action, and he's filed the appeal tonight. That's really all that I have to really explain about the situation. It's actually fairly straightforward in my view, and I don't see Mr. Nguyen here tonight to state his concerns. But with that, I will stop, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
I'd just like to ask our attorney if there's anything he'd like to add, or if there's any other thing we need to be aware of
No, sir.
as far as proceedings go. Okay.
No, sir. And since the appellant's not here, the board can go ahead and take the matter up.
I got a question. The picture on page 9, which car was that taken?
Found it forward. Yeah, I believe page 9 is the pickup truck. Ford. It's all pretty It's all pretty consistent in both vehicles. And again, I think, really all we were seeking from the very beginning is simply to have Mr. Nguyen clean out the cars and move the cars to the driveway. And that was really all that we had hoped to accomplish. We certainly don't want to make life difficult or be a burden for people, but again, trying to make sure we enforce our ordinance.
Let me start at the beginning, since you mentioned starting in the beginning, what your intent was. And I'm reading the first letter that the town sent Mr. Nguyen. And please correct me if I'm wrong. I've only read it like 5 or 6 times. There's no mention of trash in the vehicle. Am I right or wrong?
You're looking at the letter on October the 11th?
Yes. And again, on October the 29th, you included trash in the vehicle. So what?
Yeah.
The initial letter, since you want to start from the beginning.
Sure. So initially, we started out with the informal approach, right? And so I totally just expected that we would talk with the individual and resolve the concern. It was only when we got into the formal phase that we mentioned the concerns about the vehicle and the trash. But
I don't understand why it wasn't included. That's why you went to the property to start with, was a complaint from the neighbor about possibility of rats coming from 312 Holly Lane.
So the initial complaint that came across was really focused more on the house, the interior of the house, the garage, the yard. As we were there, we saw the issues with the vehicles as well.
So it progressed from there due to your first visit. Well, I got another question in regard to that. What gives us the right to tell a person he has to keep his garage door shut?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, right? I mean, we're trying to strike that balance, and we're trying to make sure that we're resolving the concerns. At the end of the day, my goal is to resolve the concern. I don't want to write someone a citation. I don't want to issue a fine. I want to resolve the concern. So we start off just trying to talk to people. There's a lot of what some people might consider to be trash and debris in the garage, and the garage door was regularly left open.
It's nobody's business what a person has in their house. What ordinance are you quoting when you told the person to close the garage door? That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, so at that point in time, we're trying to resolve it informally, and we're really thinking about overall the entire nuisance issue. Is that a potential attractant of rats or other pests or rodents or those kind of things? But please understand, we're still at the informal approach. We're just trying to talk with people and resolve issues.
Okay, what authority do we have to tell a person they have to move their vehicle from their personal property to the driveway?
Yeah, so again, you gotta look at this in totality. We looked at it and saw the fact that the vehicle is inoperable, that it has not moved in some time, that there's grass growing up around the wheels, there's all of this trash in place. Ultimately, our goal is to make the community look nice, make sure people enjoy themselves here. So it's probably questionable whether or not the person can park there. I think if the only issue that we were dealing with was the car was parked in the grass, this would never happen, it would never come up. It's the fact that it appeared inoperable and the trash.
How did you determine that it was inoperable?
It does not appear to have moved in at least since January of 2024. So we look back at all the aerial photography in the exact same location. The grass had grown up around the wheels of it. They've since been mowed. Somebody took a weed whacker to it after this issue came to light a few months ago.
So you point to sections 1, 2, and 7 as being the primary reason for you wanting to declare these vehicles a nuisance, but for instance, number 1 says a breeding ground for harbor for mosquitoes, other insects, rats, and pests. How did you determine that was a breeding ground? I mean, how did the code enforcement?
Yeah. So
how do you determine that? I mean, how do you?
Yeah. So we have these photos submitted from a nearby property owner.
So you automatically assume that came from 312? Is that what you're saying?
No, if you let me finish, I don't think we assume that it came from 312, but it's possible that it's contributing to it. In reality, there are probably several issues in the entire neighborhood that are contributing to this. And I think the standard for the ordinance is, does it create a possible harbor for those kinds of rodents or pests or rats in this particular case. So, if we hadn't received a complaint or concern from someone else in the neighborhood, we certainly wouldn't have gone out and sought out these issues.
Well, did you inventory the contents of the car and identify that there was rat feces or anything nesting in the cars? I mean, it's kind of odd to me. I don't think a rat can break into can go through a car, or much less the back of a pickup truck that has a camper shell on it. So did you verify any of that, or are you just assuming that the neighbor's rat problem came from 312 Holly Lane? That's.
Yes, I want to be clear. We're not assuming that the rat problem came from this location. What we are willing to assert is that it's possible that this is contributing to the rat problem in our town. So we did not enter the vehicle. We have the photos, we got copies of those in the package. And it certainly meets the standard of debris, trash, compressible materials, whatever the language is in there. And so when you add up the totality of the circumstances, in all honesty, in my judgment, I think we have a responsibility to the other property owners on that street to try to resolve issues. And as I said, I just want to resolve the concern. Honestly, I'm happy to go out there and clean the car out myself.
Well, I personally don't think the town has any business telling anyone that they have to close their garage door, they have to put the car. We don't. There's no HOA over here, and I just think that and you mentioned impossibilities and this and that and other. That's all I got. I'll just wait till we vote on it. Right. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, even sitting here right now in this appeal hearing, if Mr. Nguyen contacted the town and said, hey, he's going to resolve it, that'd be great. If he contacted us and said, hey, can you help us? That would be great. Because at the end of the day, all that I want to do is resolve the concerns, which I think are reasonable concerns.
I disagree. I think it's overreach by the town, code enforcement.
Can I ask for the mayor, or can I speak?
Actually, no, I'm sorry, but we're not opening this up to the public because this is for a specific property owner. So if this was you, we would respect your right to, we'd be dealing with you only on this at the point.
I mean, Frank, I'm looking at a mop bucket and whatever there. It's not like there's, and I mean, I can't identify that stuff.
Yeah, so again, I think ultimately you need to decide. You may make a decision that it is overreach and therefore grant the appeal and will not pursue these issues any further. You may make a decision that, yes, it is a nuisance vehicle and that we should continue with the enforcement. And if you make that judgment, you're still going to try to just resolve the concern as effectively and with cooperation as we can. But ultimately, this is where we're at.
Yeah, I also want to make the comment. I don't know anybody from Holly Lane. I may have driven on Holly Lane one time, so this has nothing to do with anybody I know over there. So, my opinion.
Yeah, but I think honestly, the concerns that you're raising, those are good questions to ask. That's the balance that we're struggling with here. At what point do personal property rights trump overall community welfare, or vice versa? Right? And the reality is it's not a hard black and white one way or the other. We're trying to find that balance. And this is the language in the ordinance. That's why we took that approach.
Then why didn't you put it in the very first letter to the citizen?
There were, oh gosh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I mean, there were multiple communications with that owner, including even most recently when I sent him the letter to schedule the hearing saying, please contact me. I'd love to help you resolve this, right? I mean, so again, we want to try to resolve these concerns so that everyone can go about their lives and enjoy living in Cape Carteret.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the IRS that once they get into your finances, they dig and find more. Once we get on property, do we start looking around trying to find more problems? I mean, is that where we're going with all this now? I mean,
yeah. So, not at all. I mean, we're trying to enforce the ordinances that the leaders of this town put in place. If you think that this is overreach, by all means, you should make that judgment tonight.
Well, you have not answered my question. Can you not park your vehicle on your own property?
You absolutely can.
Well, then why did you tell the man he couldn't? He needed to move his vehicles to the road, to his driveway.
Again, we're trying to work cooperatively with individuals. We're trying to make the neighborhood a better place. So technically, there's no violation with where he's parked the car. The violation is with the trash and the debris included in the cars.
Well, I think it
But
was,
because we're trying to build a good community, we're trying to just get things nice and neat where we can. If he came back and said, hey, I removed the trash from the vehicles, but I'm not going to move the car, we're probably going to drop it, because you're absolutely right. There's no ordinance that says you can't park the car in the garage.
then you should not have asked him to, is what I'm getting to. Should have asked him to close his garage door or move his car. It's the bottom line here.
And so that's good feedback for me to have from the elected officials as the manager, but that's not really the issue for consideration tonight. It's really as simple as, are these nuisance vehicles or are they not? It sounds like you think they're not, and that's perfectly fine decision for you or the entire board to make, but that's really what the question is.
Well, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion so we can all vote. Is that okay?
You can make a motion anytime you like.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to deny the appeal to Mr. Richard Wynn and determine that the vehicles at 312 Holly Lane are nuisance vehicles under section 90.03 of the Code of Ordinance, and if
Can't hear
necessary,
anything she's saying.
Corey, you gotta
direct
speak
town
up. I
staff
can't even
to
hear you.
resolve the violation with town resources. So, motion to deny the appeal.
Can somebody repeat that, please? I can't hear over here.
She just made a motion to deny the appeal, to find that those vehicles are nuisance vehicles under the ordinance, and to authorize staff to continue on with the remedy of the appeal.
And I'll second that motion.
All right, any more discussion?
I hate to tell a man what to do with his property. I mean, I see the vehicle hasn't moved. My question is, who owns the vehicle from Florida? Apparently, his deceased mother was probably in probate.
That's our understanding, yes.
It's a tough one, Frank. You're opening a can of worms that I don't think our bank account can cash.
And that's perfectly fine. That's why we have an appeal process. That's why ultimately you all make the ordinances and set the policies. Depending on what your decision is tonight, we probably ought to consider amending this ordinance in the future.
I think a man ought to be able to put what he wants to in his vehicles and his house.
But what if it's at the detriment of his community?
I don't think it's anybody's business what they've got in their house.
I think when it's at the detriment of his community, it
Anybody
becomes.
coming in your house, looking to see what you have in your house? You want the government coming in your house?
As long as it's not at the detriment to the community, I think that's what we're talking about here.
I don't think that's been proven. The town has yet to prove that they did an inventory on the contents of the vehicle. They did not do an inventory. The town attorney says they're not inclined to do an inventory from what I've been told. I disagree with that too.
I don't think we have the right to open the man's door and take out what's in this car. I don't think we have that ability to do that, just as we don't have the ability to go in his
So
house.
then it couldn't be verified. That's all I need. to know.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second, any more discussion? All right, all in favor? The motion? All opposed? All right, that motion is declined. So do we need to?
So I always prefer to have a motion in the affirmative. So if one of the three that are in favor of granting the appeal would make a motion to that effect, because right now we got.
Okay, I'll make a motion to grant Mr. Wynn's appeal.
There you go. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? All opposed? That carries 3-2.
We will immediately cease enforcement actions at 312 Holly Lane. Thank you.
All right, next up is a resolution adopting emergency operations plan.
Mayor Baker, Commissioners, you have before you this evening a formal emergency operations plan for your consideration. This document would guide the town's mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery efforts associated with a significant community emergency. Obviously, with our coastal location, we're primarily talking about hurricanes and other tropical storm events, but could possibly be used if there were some other emergency. Essentially, what the plan does is it outlines the responsibilities and the expectations of key town officials before, during, and after a significant event, and it's really just best practice for local government. The town, for whatever reason, does not currently have an emergency operations plan, although, as you know, the town has managed through several hurricane and tropical storm events over the years, and I think has managed those events appropriately. The fact that we have a plan is helpful in a few ways. One is that it essentially conveys to the key people what their responsibilities are and when. Although all of us probably in this room now have been through several of these things and maybe kind of have it down pat by now, fortunately or unfortunately, there will always be new people coming to the community who it'll be their first time they go through a hurricane event. It's also something that comes into play with the regulatory agencies and with grant funding agencies at some point. And so it's helpful to have a written emergency operation plan. As you often hear me say, we have deliberately tried to keep this as simple and straightforward as we possibly can, but still convey the appropriate information. Really, the key pages of the plan are page 14 through 17. It includes a checklist that outlines specific tasks and actions for each key individual as the storm is approaching and when it's upon us and in the aftermath of that. I won't go through all of those specific tasks and responsibilities. I'll hit on a few of the key ones. Number one, as outlined in our town ordinances for emergency management, and is the case in most communities, the mayor is tasked with declaring a state of emergency, imposing a curfew, ordering an evacuation, limiting the sale of alcohol, any restrictions that might be put in place. That's the mayor's decision to make. That's pretty common. That's in the Code of Ordinances. I will tell you in practice, every mayor that I've ever worked with in my career typically consults with the town manager, with the police chief, with his colleagues on the elected board. Has always been a very cooperative process in my experience. Ultimately, the mayor is tasked with rescinding the state of emergency. According to our ordinance, if he does not, it expires within 5 days. There's also a provision in there where the Board of Commissioners by majority vote could rescind the state of emergency and any restrictions and so forth. Basically, the plan designates the town manager as the key person. The town manager decides to activate the emergency operations plan. The town manager is the incident commander for any emergency events that we go through. Because we're such a small organization, we've got a grand total of 15 employees working for the town. The plan essentially deems all of our employees as essential employees. However, it does give the town manager to excuse certain employees if they're not necessary or not helpful during that situation. So, but generally, the basic expectation is everybody's expected to contribute and be here and be a part of the emergency operations for the town. We have also included a copy of the state mutual aid agreement. That's something that we just renewed a few months ago. It's a standard document that pretty much nearly every community in North Carolina has executed. It simply formally authorizes the sharing of resources between different units of government. Typically what happens is you go through your county emergency management office and then they coordinate with the state and with the other units. In reality, what happens is there's a lot of communication between colleagues. For example, I may talk to the town manager in another town, but we'll ultimately run it through the county emergency management office. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about it. I don't think there's anything in here that's inconsistent with the way the town has operated in the past. And it's certainly, again, a best practice document. It's consistent with my previous experience in North Carolina. So.
Any questions for Frank?
I'm glad to see it in writing. I don't think we've ever had one of these before, Frank, have we?
I don't believe so.
Are we approving just having a plan tonight, or are we approving this plan? And my question is, if after this meeting you say, well, I want to change a certain section of this, do you just change that, or do you have to come back for another resolution?
Yeah, good question. So you would be approving this specific plan, and if there were amendments in the future, I would come back to the Board of Commissioners and request an amendment or suggest an amendment.
I'll make a motion to accept the plan as written.
I'll second that.
All right, any more discussion? Not all in favor? Next up is reallocation of stormwater improvement funds. Two issues, I guess. One is the capital project ordinance amendment, stormwater improvements, and then the budget amendment to the general fund.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Baker. This item actually was requested by Mayor Pro Tem Martin at the end of your November meeting, essentially seeking to reallocate $35,000 of the remaining stormwater improvement funds for the development of a new park and reflection area along the new multi-use path at the cut through between Taylor Ocean Road and Highway 58. The location that I think is envisioned for this is basically at the cut through. This is kind of an aerial photograph. If you see the red line here along Highway 58, that's the section that's currently under construction. They've got the rock base in place all the way to about where I've got the cursor. I expect the Taylor and Ocean Road segment will start probably now, not till after the first of the year. But this is the easement area that the town retained when we sold the property. So essentially, we've got a 65-foot wide swath here. The path is located about 10 foot off of the boundary of that, and the path is 10 foot wide. So we've got about 45 feet plus or minus of width between the path location and the property line here. And we've got about 160 feet plus or minus from Taylor Ocean to Highway 58. You know, the path curves a little bit, but roughly we've got about 7,200 square feet available there. Mayor Pro Tem Martin and I have talked about developing a park-like feature, a reflection area, as he's characterized it, in that location. I think there's ample room there to do that if the board wants to move forward with that. We have also talked about locating some of the exercise equipment with funds generated by the Turkey Trot and provided through the Cape Carteret Aquatic and Wellness Center. I would envision, perhaps doing the reflection area on one side or the other, maybe on the Taylor Ocean Road side on this side, and then maybe doing the exercise equipment over in this area, but we can obviously work toward that later. These actions tonight, if approved by the board, move the $35,000 from the Stormwater Improvements Fund, and then they assign them to the General Fund Public Building and Grounds account. The Stormwater Improvements Fund right now, we've got about $95,000 left in that fund now. We are nearly complete with the 12 locations that were originally designated by the board for stormwater improvements. I expect that we'll probably spend roughly another $35,000 or so. We're getting ready to start some work on Dolphin Street, and we're going to do some in-house work at Loma Linda Drive. So I think after that, we'll have about $60,000 left. So if the board, and we'll be done with all of the stormwater improvements, if the board wants to allocate $35,000 for this, you can do that. And then I think we'll still have probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $25,000 plus or minus left after that transaction occurs. So really two items. It's really one item, but there's procedural. Yeah, there's two votes. It's really the same action. You're taking $35,000 out of the stormwater improvements capital project ordinance, and you're just adding that to the general fund budget for the current year. My expectation is that I think we'll have the path completely constructed within the next couple of months, and then try to construct the reflection area sometime this spring, and have that finished if the board approves the actions tonight. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Frank? Any questions?
I'd just like to point out one thing, Frank, within the amount of money that I'm requesting the board to allocate for that, and I'll talk to you about that. I just want to make sure the board's aware that some of that would go to enhancements for the total trail, such as dog poop stations and things of that nature. So just to make sure that, and this is the only time, in my opinion, we'll have a so-called windfall to do that for this trail. So I think we take full advantage of it. We've fulfilled our obligations and our goals with the stormwater funds. And I think that this would benefit all citizens to have an area like the reflection area and what Deanna at the gym has proposed and donated $10,000 for the workout station. So.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify for the board, the 10,000 provided by the Aquatic and Wellness Center is separate from this 35,000.
Yeah, she's already gave that
That's
check
right.
to us, yeah.
That was going to be another question. So you said you needed two motions
Yes,
on this?
we need to do a motion for the capital project first.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to adopt the capital project ordinance amendment, stormwater improvements.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? And why don't you go ahead and do the second?
I'll do that. Make a motion to adopt the general fund budget amendment.
Second. All in favor?
So that mess it
All
up.
right, thank you. Next up, Big Rock Foundation Grant Award.
So yeah, some great news here. Happy to report that the town received a grant of $34,500 from the Big Rock Foundation. We discussed this with the board earlier this year. Chief Silva put together a good application and we were successful. So they awarded $34,500. That's going to enable us to equip each of our officers' vehicles with an automatic external defibrillator that they can use on scene. They're pretty simple devices to use and might make the difference in saving someone's life if they're having a cardiac event. So most of the funds, a total of $26,000, would go toward the purchase of AEDs. There's an additional $8,500 that would equip all of our officers with wireless lapel microphones. And these are essentially devices that will connect with the radios in the car. Sometimes they have difficulty communicating inside large buildings, i.e. a Lowe's Home Improvement warehouse, for example. And we think this is going to improve communications for our officers, ultimately improve their safety and their effectiveness as well. So my congratulations to Chief Silva and the police department, and my thanks to the Big Rock Foundation for awarding the grant. The board has two actions to consider. One is a resolution accepting the grant, and then second is the general fund budget amendment, which simply appropriates the $34,500 to the police department budget. There's no local match associated with the grant, so it's a great accomplishment for the town and will be very helpful. So.
I got one question, Frank.
Yes.
Chief, do you know how long the lifespan of those machines are?
I know that there are batteries, and the ones that we are getting, I talked to the chief of the fire department, they will be compatible with the ones that Western Carteret uses. So all of the stuff we need pads will be able to be swapped out, and if we deploy them, they'll be able to jump in and look at right to the equipment we have. So they actually helped us select the devices.
That was going to be my next question. Thank you.
Do all your officers know how to use those?
Already, that was the email today, it comes with ACC guard training, which they should all have, but we're getting ready to do refresher, and I talked to Western Carteret, they're gonna go ahead and set us up a class. We can get ahead of that before they get.
Thank you.
We need two votes on this as well, correct?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution accepting the Big Rock Foundation grant.
Second.
All in favor? All right, we'll do the next one.
I motion to adopt the general fund budget amendment.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. All right, next we have an appointment for the Board of Adjustments. We have one vacancy. We have y'all should have a sheet in front of you for two of the candidates. And if you would, I think last time we did it, you need to sign or initial so we know who you are.
That's right.
You vote and pass this way. I'm just Vanna. I just sit here and look pretty. Because you don't know the mayor doesn't get to vote or anything like that. Don't get to vote at all.
But there's a tie.
Unless there's a
That's a
tie.
good.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Michael Ricci has been voted to fill the seat.
All right. Not here, I guess. But we would contact him, and congratulations to Mr. Ritchie. All right, next up is the town manager's report.
Just a few things real quick. Public Works started the vegetative debris collection today, so they'll be working on that probably the better part of this week and perhaps into next week. We've got the Santa Claus tour next Monday night and Tuesday night. Again, that seemed to be an enjoyable event last year. Hopefully it will be well received again this year. I am set to meet next Monday with Senator Sanderson and Representative Carnes and Commissioner Waldrop, and potentially another county commissioner and the county manager next Monday to talk about issues important to the town, including the potential new town hall police station, some of the DOT requests we put forth recently, and then really anything else. Commissioner Barnhill and Mayor Pro Tem Martin will join me for that meeting. They'd expressed interest in that initially. So
I could be frank.
well, we can only have two there. So, but I will certainly report back to the full board the outcome of that meeting, and look forward to that. The street resurfacing was finished up the other day. I think turned out reasonably well on Yopon and Anita Fort. Glad to get that done. On the multi-use path, I'm expecting them to build those wooden boardwalks this week. Was the last communication I had. They've got some of the forms up out there right now. I really don't think we'll get started on the Taylor and Ocean Road path until after the first of the year. I'm supposed to go out with the contractor, hopefully any day now, just for a pre-construction meeting and get that underway and get it rolling. Boat ramp passes. As of today, we've issued 175 total, plus another 39 of the second passes that don't count toward the cap. So there are 125 passes left right now. I would encourage anybody who would like to secure one to not wait, to do that sooner than later. And then lastly, I just would point you to a nuisance condition on 206 Live Oak Drive. I've got a blurb in here about this and also a letter about that. This is a situation we've been working on for about a year, not quite a year, with the town. And it actually goes back several years after that we're getting ready to essentially take action with town staff, town resources to clean up the issues there. There's lots of pictures included for you as well. I gave the individuals until December 31st as a final notice. They've been experiencing some health concerns over the course of the year. It's also the Christmas holidays. But if they don't have it cleaned up by the 31st, then we will be taking action sometime after the first of the year. So with that, that's all I have to report. If you have other questions or concerns, I'm happy to answer them right now.
Any questions for Frank? If not, we'll move on to the commission reports. Start with you tonight, Cameron.
Well, that's great because I have nothing tonight.
All right,
Well, I have a lot,
well, go ahead.
and I hope y'all all can hear me. I'd first like to congratulate Mary Ann Woodruff on her swearing in. She's one of our county commissioners. That's awesome. And I'd like to applaud the Big Rock Foundation for their generous contributions to the Ozark Police Department. I know you guys worked hard on that, get the application in. And I'd also like to recognize the Girl Scouts for doing a wonderful job at the town social on December 2nd. It was very cold, and that hot chocolate was really good. So it was almost as good as their Girl Scout cookies. But just seeing those beautiful smiling faces, gives you some hope for the future. So, don't forget to purchase Girl Scout cookies too, because they pay their own money for their cookies and hot chocolate. And I'd also like to thank the town staff for their hard work and making my job easier as a commissioner. And I'd also like to thank the seasoned commissioners and the mayor and Frank for helping me out and guiding me through this first year. And I've learned a lot. So it takes a lot to serve the community, and it's obvious that these guys love the community. It's crystal clear to me, so I thank them. So, and then last but not least, I'd like to thank the community for the opportunity to serve. And I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And that's all I have.
Boy, that's a hard one to follow. Yeah, beat that job.
Good job,
First, I'd like to say to Courtney, thank you for a very excellent year's service. Charlie, Steve, and Cameron taught you well and also taught me very well. I feel that this board has probably been one of the most unified board in town history, and I'm sure there's only one other, maybe two other people out there that would agree with me there. I think we've accomplished a lot in our first year. I want to say thank you to Ryan for all his hard work. Where are you at, Ryan? Back there? All right, you're doing a great job with Public Works. I want to say thank you to Chief Silva. Doing a great job. Thank you. And to the staff, you're amazing. You make our job very easy. To my fellow commissioners in the town of Cape Carteret, citizens, I'd like to wish you all a blessed Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. With that being said, all I got to say is hopefully next year we'll be able to bring home more for the town.
Everybody have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Congratulations, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mary Ann, on your election. And I just want to point out one fact. In the 7 years I've been sitting up here, I've never seen another county commissioner grace us with their presence. You have taken an interest in our town, and we appreciate it. It does not go unnoticed. We're thankful. I want to echo what Commissioner Ritchie said. I had it on my notes to say the same thing. This is the most unified board of commissioners that we've ever had in this town since I've been here. And I think it's obvious that what we have been able to get done, and it was obvious in the financial audit, what hard work this board and the mayor and Frank have done. I'm thrilled to work with this bunch up here, especially during a pivotal time in town when it's really need unification on this board. Roll up our sleeves and get the work done on behalf of the town. And with that, I wish everyone a Merry Christmas, safe one, and we'll see you next year on the bigger and better things.
All right, I get the last word, and I just want to echo what Steve just said. Mary, you're the only one I've seen come in here from the county, even before you got elected, which I thought that was very nice. And now you are elected, so you didn't have to come. and you are here, so thank you. I really appreciate that. Look forward to having a meeting, and hopefully we can get, here again, we're all in the same county. We're all should be working together. That's what it's all about. And as you've seen tonight, even when the board may not agree on a particular issue, they're still doing it what they feel is in the best interest of the town, which is what I support. And the system works. So we're getting things done, and I can't say enough about our staff, and police, everybody. It's just an awesome job. I thought the tree lighting was very cold, but very beautiful tree. I thought there again, Public Works guys, you're doing an awesome job. I have nothing but compliments from the community about that. And Mr. Caldwell, thank you for being here and during vacations. And I know you're close personal friends with Santa. Thank him for coming out this past week as well. And look forward to seeing him next week doing a little thing. I think we had a great public outreach on that, and the kids love it. So thank you, and thanks Santa. Please send that to him for me. I do appreciate that. And we're going to have a meeting, like I say, we're looking at, hopefully we can get the future going and get some, I love spending other people's money. So if we get some state money or some county money, our new town hall, and hopefully EOC, do some regionalization. I'd love to see some things come together on this end of the county. And other than that, I'm just going to shut up and say Merry Christmas, and hopefully that we'll get a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. All in favor? Thank you. And thank you all for being here tonight. We get tongue-tied sometimes.
Have a Merry Christmas, Charlie. Stay in touch.
Good luck, Charlie.
Merry Christmas.
Here, always check insurance stuff, so we go online and check.
I guess I'll bring this.
It's right down there at the bottom. It's that one right there. I could be wrong.
I'm not gonna scan it all.
There's an email address on here.